All righty. Anyway, here we are. We are here, and my name is Willie Lawson, and welcome to the Morning Report. The Morning Report is production of FightbackMedia.com, 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 and FightbackMediaTV.com. We appreciate you being here today. All right, let's get started. We are live on Podbean, I think. Hope so. Yep, we're live on Podbean. Let's see here if I can share my live show. All righty, we are live. Just making sure that everything is copacetic. It is. All right. I have this background here on YouTube because we're on fire. The world's on fire. Anyway, so I want to get to the subject material as quickly as possible. It's Friday. I did work Friday. I told you guys on YouTube that maybe I wasn't going to be working a lot of Fridays, but I did work last week and this week. It's pretty easy. All right, let's get started with this. We are, we remember the whole Riley Gaines, Leah Thomas thing, William Thomas thing, where they actually tied in an NCAA race, and the NCAA said, yes, you tied, but we're going to give the trophy to William. And all Riley said was, why? It would seem like, okay, for me, the NCAA, which makes a gajillion dollars, that they would have said, hey, listen, we're not going to give out the trophy. What we're going to do is we're going to make another one, and you're both going to get one. And it's going to say, they're both going to say first place. So years from now, you could say, yeah, I came in first place, or I tied, or whatever. That way, because both athletes, I guess, deserve that, I guess, especially Riley, because Riley was participating in a women's event and she happens to be a woman. Anyway, she has become incredibly outspoken about the participation of dudes in women's sports and girls sports. And this year, again, we talked about William, and has been engaged in a quote secret legal battle and overturning a rule established by the World Aquatics, prohibiting males who think they're transgender, dudes, from competing against women. Previously, of course, William Thomas robbed women of awards, and that made women feel uncomfortable in the locker rooms when he joined the women's swim team at the University of Penn. You guys remember that? And he had competed as a dude sort of mediocrely, for 3 years. So anyway, athletes like former University of Kentucky swimmer Riley Gaines were forced to compete against William. The women's division, Gaines tied. We talked about that. Now Gaines and some other athletes are suing the NCAA over its policies that permit people like Thomas to compete against women. The lawsuit, filed Thursday by more than a dozen former and current college athletes, sued the NCAA, University System of Georgia, and others in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia on Thursday over these policies. According to the report from Fox News, the lawsuit sought an injunction against the NCAA and the universities hosting championship events in 2025 and 2026 for implementing the NCAA's inclusive transgender BS athlete policies. This is from Fox News. The NCAA has simultaneously imposed a radical anti-woman agenda on college sports, reinterpreting the Title IX to define woman as a testosterone level, permitting men to compete on women's teams, the complaint said. and destroying female safe spaces in women's locker rooms by authorizing naked men possessing full male genitalia to disrobe in front of non-consenting college women and creating situations in which unwilling female college athletes unwittingly and or reluctantly expose their naked or partially clad bodies to males, subjecting women to a loss of their constitutional right to bodily privacy. The complaint adds the NCAA has aligned with most of the radical elements of the so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda on college campuses, facilitating the NCAA's effort to shore up its flagging on campus approval ratings in furtherance of the NCAA's relentless drive to monetize collegiate sport and diverting attention from the financial exploitation of college athletes by the NCAA colleges and universities, all at the expense of female student athletes. Now, if you're just a dude and you decide you're going to walk by, that you're going to go into the women's dorm, any women's dorm in the country, and you're going to go in there and not wearing any pants or underwear, they're going to arrest you. They're going to arrest you for indecent exposure, and they're probably going to kick you out because you are basically forcing your naked body on unconsenting women. Now, you remember a few years ago, I'm old to remember a few years ago when basically the song, the Christmas, it's not a Christmas song, but it's around Christmas time, Baby It's Cold Outside, was under scrutiny because it was, like, according to the left, promoting date rape. You remember? Remember that song? Oh, I really must go. Oh, you gotta stay, baby, because it's cold outside, remember that song? But now, so if you're a female athlete and you go to the locker room and there's some dude, sausage and balls just flailing in the wind, and you're supposed to be okay with it. They told women athletes or swimmers at Penn that William was swimming and there was just nothing anybody could do about it. That was a non-negotiable. And they offered counseling if they had problems with it. They were going to counsel the women who didn't want the naked body of the man just sashaying around the locker room and the showers. They were going to counsel the women. The SEC swimming and diving championships are scheduled for February 18th to 22nd, 2025, next year at the University of Georgia. The NCAA Division I Women's Swimming and Diving Championships will take place at Georgia Tech in 2026. Other events like the NCAA Division I Women's Tennis Championship will be held at schools in Georgia in the coming years as well. So that's why the suit's in Georgia. The NCAA continues to explicitly violate the federal civil rights law of Title IX. About time someone did something about it, Gaines wrote on X. Riley wrote this: I'm suing the NCAA along with 15 other collegiate athletes who have lost out on titles, records, and roster spots to men posing as women. The NCAA continues to explicitly violate the federal civil rights law of Title IX. About time somebody did something. Wait, let me click on this. Oops, and wait a minute. About it. Wow. It's absolutely amazing. And it just seems insane that there are people who are just going along with the insanity, just sort of pretending that everything is fine. That this is the way it's supposed to happen. This is perfectly okay. How's that even possible? How's that even freaking possible? But that's what seems to be going on here. So I'm really happy that somebody, let's see. Okay, I'm really happy that somebody is doing something about it or attempting to do something about it. We'll see. We'll see if the courts are going to back these women up. So, previously independent Council on Women's Sports, ICON sent a demand letter to the NCAA in 2023 to keep women's sports exclusive to female athletes. This lawsuit against the NCAA isn't just about competition. It's a fight for the very essence of women's sports. The ICONS, which is the Independent Council on Women's Sports, co-founder and former national champion swimmer Marcy Smith, told Outkick, "We're standing up for fairness, for the rights of female athletes to compete on a level playing field. It's about preserving the legacy of Title IX and ensuring that that the future of women's sports is as bright as its past and fair as its past." It's absolutely, positively, outrageously amazing that this is going on, and everybody concerned, the NCAA and all the other governing bodies, should just be ashamed of themselves. What do you think? Put it in the comments. Those of you on Podbean, go ahead and put it in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think about it. All right. When I saw this, the first thing I thought was, is Chuck Schumer trying to interfere with a foreign election? Well, Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, stunning floor comments on Thursday have been poorly received there in Israel. In addition to withering reviews in the United States as well, we've read Schumer's comments calling for new Israeli elections and for Netanyahu's government to be replaced for various Israeli officials and citizens. The reactions have been slack-jaw astonishment, followed by substantive response ranging from a measured pushback to a genuinely indignant criticism. Schumer's upper chamber Republican counterpart, Mitch McConnell, reacted strikingly negative to Schumer's remarks. Well, yeah. Here we go. The primary obstacle to peace in Israel's region are genocidal terrorists like Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, who slaughter innocent people and corrupt leaders of the Palestinian Authority who have repeatedly rejected peace deals from multiple Israeli governments, and foreign observers who cannot keep these clear distinctions straight ought to refrain from weighing in. It is grotesque and hypocritical for Americans who hyperventilate about foreign interference in our own democracy to call for the removal or the democratically elected leader of Israel. This is unprecedented. We should not treat fellow democracies that way. Things that upset left-wing activists are not a prime minister's policies. They're Israel's policies. Make no mistake, the Democratic Party doesn't have an anti-Bibi problem. It has an anti-Israel problem. Israel is not a colony of America whose leaders serve at the pleasure of the party in power in Washington. Only Israel citizens should have a say in who runs their government. This is the very definition of democracy and sovereignty. Either way, we respect their decisions or we disrespect their democracy. This is Mitch McConnell of all people. Are you serious? I mean, the idea is that Israel runs Israel. They elected Bibi Netanyahu. We have zero to say about it. But I'll tell you, a lot of Democrats just can't help it. They just get so caught up in their hubris, they just can't help it. And as McConnell pointed out, Israel is being led by a war cabinet unity government right now. Israel is in a fight for its continued existence against a brutal enemy who started the war by slaughtering 1,200 of Israel's people. Why that keeps getting forgotten is beyond me. It would be extraordinarily inappropriate for someone in Schumer's position to give a regime change speech like this about any democratically elected government of an allied nation. It's shocking to see him go there on Israel, which formed its current governing coalition early last year, by the way. After recent elections and the wartime policies of the Netanyahu government, regardless of what one thinks of the Prime Minister himself, are widely popular. I mean, he's widely popular in Israel. Many observers have suggested that that a Netanyahu replacement might actually take a more aggressive approach to the war than the current leader. Netanyahu's top rival, who is currently serving in the war cabinet, publicly rejected Schumer's comments, as did a host of Israeli leaders and pro-Israel groups. Widely and deservedly panned flop, unacceptable. Holy moly. And really nothing short of an anti-Israel fanaticism and pro-Hamas propaganda will satisfy the radical element of the Democrat base. These broadsides were meant to appease. Schumer is Jewish and generally pro-Israel. This loud, growing fringe is going to hate him anyway. The New York senator is delusional if he thinks some diplomatically disastrous tough talk against Netanyahu will buy him any goodwill with these agitators, or will make the other parts of his speech more palatable to them. His seemingly unprecedented choice to pander in this particular manner, entirely in the service of a bad domestic policy miscalculation, is beyond reckless and cynical. There's also a fundamental problem with him calling for a two-state solution anytime soon, beyond sending the obvious dreadful message of rewarding Hamas for their savagery. And because I guess what Chucky knows is that there's no way that Benjamin Netanyahu is ever going to agree to a two-state solution. Not going to happen. Again, but independent of that, it's hubris and highly improper for Schumer to have said what he said, and his damage control isn't helping. Here's what he tweeted. The U.S. cannot dictate the outcome of an election. That is for the Israeli public to decide. As a democracy, Israel has the right to choose its own leaders. But the important thing that Israelis are given a choice. There needs to be a fresh debate about the future. That's up to them to see if there needs to be a fresh debate about the future. And it's up to the Israelis on the choices they get. Please. And all he did was piss Israel off. That's all he did. And they're screaming election interference. You remember Russia, Russia, Russia? Remember? Are you old enough to remember that? I certainly am. Oh, so hopefully he'll get censored, but he won't. In any case, what do you think? Go ahead and put that in the comments. All right. I was just scrolling through TikTok, and somebody asked me, one of the guys I work with asked me on what's today, Friday, on Wednesday, what I thought. My thought on TikTok is, who cares? Whatever. It stays, it goes. It doesn't matter. Something else will show up, take its place. I don't necessarily believe that it restricts your freedom of expression or your freedom of speech, because you can still do exactly what you do on Instagram or something else, or on YouTube or something else. I think TikTok, is toxic. Now, does that mean I think it should be banned? Not necessarily, but if we're having that discussion, that's fine. So today, the House voted to ban TikTok. And the thing is, now that bill has to go to the Senate, and if it gets passed in the Senate, it has to go to the president's desk. So we are a long way from a TikTok ban in America. So everybody needs to keep their powder dry. Don't be too happy. Don't be too mad. Nothing has changed. Go to TikTok. It's still there. Nothing has changed. But Senator Rand Paul, which a lot of us, normally agree with, made the case as to why banning TikTok, the Chinese app, makes no sense, ahead of the House passing the legislation yesterday, or Wednesday. So in a 352 to 65 vote, the House passed a bill that could ban TikTok in the United States, which Republicans says poses a national security threat, and that may be true. However, Paul argued that banning the Chinese-dominated app is a draconian measure that stifles free expression. I don't necessarily think that. But anyway, it tramples constitutional rights. I don't necessarily think that either. And disrupt the economic pursuits of millions of Americans. It does. There are people who make a few dollars on TikTok. I don't know if there's anybody who is making Mr. Beast money on TikTok, but there are people who are getting a few bucks to pay bills. And in this time, what did we teach for years? Multiple income streams. So in a Twitter post, Paul claimed that banning TikTok will result in ignoring its substantial investments in data security. Yeah, probably. Just screw it. We don't care. And threatened the American digital and it threatened the American digital innovation. I, I don't know if that's true. Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't true. He pointed out that lawmakers from both sides of the political aisle want to ban the app because it's owned by China, which Paul argued is not entirely true. Well, let's investigate. The truth is the algorithm runs in the US in the Oracle cloud with their review of the code, not in China. 60% of the company is owned by the US and international investors. 20% is owned by the company's founders. 20% is owned by company employees which are over 7,000 Americans. Okay. Let's see if we can get to more information real quick. The CEO of TikTok is from Singapore, not China. So he thinks that all this stuff are scare tactics, and I don't necessarily think that. I don't. Right? We'll see. Paul has also pushed back on politicians who say that they want to ban TikTok because its date can't be secured due to an algorithm being in China. Okay, this is not in China. However, the Republican senator claims that the algorithm runs in the U.S. Paul did acknowledge that the communist country does demand things, but says that it has been proven that any information really is going from TikTok to any people in China. If passed, TikTok, owned by ByteDance, will have 165 days from the day it enacted to dismantle the app or face a ban in the U.S. app stores and web hosting services. So you just won't be able to get to it. Now, there's always going to be a backdoor. There's always going to be, if you are on a VPN and pretend that you're in another country. I mean, there's ways to do it. There's ways to get around everything, right? So we'll see. Do you think it's important, or do you just think it's something to run us around with? All right, I think this was important. This is a column by Katie Pavlich of townhall.com. Question is, are Republicans ready to take on the Olympians of voting? The Iowa caucuses, New Hampshire primary, South Carolina primaries, and Super Tuesday have come and gone with President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump racking up enough delegates to become the 2024 nominees of their respective political parties. Now, the real race for the White House starts. As a result of Trump's dominance in the Republican primary, the general election against incumbent President Joe Biden is set to be the longest in history. Both sides will burn through significant amounts of cash in an effort to break through in swing states to win the White House. If the election were held today, polling shows that President Trump would win. He's beating Biden, albeit with a margin of error. Okay, within the margin of error. In Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Georgia, the number of independents dissatisfied with Biden's first term is astounding, dropping into the low 40s, while Trump ascends into the high 50s with the group, according to a recent Harris Forbes polling. But the polling won't matter if Republican voters don't get to work on understanding their state election systems and working with them to get Trump over the finish line. Wow, Katie, I talk about this all the time. Democrats are the Olympians of voting. In 2020, they changed swing state election rules in favor of Democrats under the guise of the pandemic emergency. Yes, they did. As a result, by the time election time day rolled around, Democrats had already banked millions of votes through legal community organizing, ballot harvesting, which we do not do, early voting, and casting ballots through the mail. Republicans show up on election day very far behind, hoping to make up the gap. In most instances, it's an impossible task. I've been told that I should early vote because then they'll know how many votes they need. Yes, there were startling irregularities that make me think that something dirty is going on when 4 or 5 states just in the middle of the night just stopped counting. What we have to do is we have to participate. Here's why I think you should early vote if you can, because that makes you available on election day to do the things you need to do to help candidates. You need to make sure that you know what the election laws are. Are they changing in your state? Are they still COVID era election laws? Do you know? Are you just assuming? Are you in a community? Maybe you're in a senior community. Are you helping people vote who have absentee ballots? Are you offering to collect them and take them in? Are you harvesting them? Yes. Are you just saying, well, just get there the best way you can? Good luck. Or are you actually doing something? If you don't live in that community, are you a local Republican club who've decided to adopt or annex a community and say, you know what, who has an absentee ballot, especially in Florida, you know who has one, and you can see if it's turned in. Are you going to get it? Are you actively going to get it? What are you doing? Because these people know how to do this crap. Forget the cheating part. They'll beat you. They'll beat you fair and square on the legal part. Now, if they think they have to cheat, we're done. But if you don't win the legal part, good Lord, man. Good Lord. So it's time. And don't wait till, good God, don't wait till November. Don't wait till a week before the election. It is the Ides of March, the 15th of March. Really good time to get going. A really good time to get going. All right, we got to get out of here and make room for somebody else. So until we see you again, we need you to go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We'll see you when we see you. Bye bye now.